More on this, I'm joined by Ashok Sajjanhar. He's a former ambassador. I'm also joined by Parvez Memon. He's a senior partner at MZM Legal LLP. Good evening and namaskar to both of you gentlemen. Ambassador Sajjanhar, let me start with you. These are still reports. These are still proposals that are being talked about. But what do you make of them? Why would United States want to do this now? Does it have something to do with the fact that this is an election year and Joe Biden has a lot of pressure domestically as well to stop supporting the war?
Yeah, thank you very much, Shreya, for having me on your show. Yes, I think you're very right. I think what Mr. Biden feels is that he has his back to the wall because there have been so many protests against his policy of supporting Israel, whether it is not only militarily, but politically, diplomatically, financially, in terms of the weaponry, equipments, armaments, sending out these two the ships, the aircraft carriers onto the Mediterranean Sea. So in every sense, the United States and President Joe Biden has been supporting Israel. You would recall that very recently, President Biden had also mentioned when the Japanese Prime Minister Fumio Kishida was visiting Washington, D.C., in the White House on the South Lawn, he had said that our guarantees for the protection and security of Israel are ironclad. So this policy of his has been getting a lot of pushback particularly from the younger community, from the student community, from the Democrats, liberals, progressives, and from the Arab Americans, because we know that in the universities, many of them are, of course, very radicalized, but also the numbers of foreign students, and particularly from West Asia, that is pretty significant. The number of foreign students is close to 50%. And there is a huge funding of many of these universities by governments like Qatar, and there have been reports that there are others also who have been supporting. So the policy, there have been protests, there have been demonstrations against Mr. Biden's policy. So I think to placate some of these ruffled feathers, maybe he is going out and sending out this message that we are very concerned about the condition, about the hardship, about the misery that the Gazan refugees are going through. But then, of course, the numbers are huge. And how will these numbers, who are the people who are going to be selected? Because once this happens,
which is what my next question was, Ambassador Sajjanhar. And let me take this across to Parvez. Parvez, how does this work out legally? There are huge numbers of displaced people in Gaza as an after effect of the war. Egypt has to be involved in this. There are certain specifications that the United States is mulling over. One of them being that you'll have to have permanent residents or relatives in America. How does this work out legally, really?
Well, Shreya, firstly, thank you for having me on the show tonight. I would want to make 5 brief points on the subject. According to me, firstly, this is too late and too little. Late because the conflict in the region is going on now for about 8 months, and now the US has risen to the occasion. And little because the conditional grant only to those who have relatives in the US would mean hardly 1 or 2% of the survivors in Gaza to get refuge in the United States. Secondly, according to me, it is ironical and hypocritical. Now, on the one hand, you are supporting Israel to continue bombing in Gaza, and on the other hand, you are portraying mercy on the survivors of such attacks. Shreya, if you go back to the history, the irony is that the United Nations had settled the Jews during their persecution in Russia and Europe into Palestine as refugees. And now they are giving refuge to the Palestinians. Shreya, nobody likes to leave their country and live like a refugee in a foreign state. The better course for the United States would be that to mediate and de-escalate the war situation in the Gulf region. Further, as you rightly said, that it is now merely at a discussion stage. And as we see that US is going into elections in the next 2 to 3 months, in November the elections are slated. If Republicans were to come to power, we all know what the fate of such discussion would be. Nevertheless, any right step in a right direction is always welcome. I expect that the other nations like the UK, the European nations should take cue to it, and then there would be any significant, reprieve to the people in Gaza.
Okay. Parvez, what I'd asked you is that legally, would it be a more convenient, smooth process, or this leads to a lot of more and other complications to get Gazan refugees to United States and involving Egypt in it?
Definitely, there are too many complications to it. As I said, it is purely a discussion stage. Secondly, Egypt will have to be taken into confidence. Thirdly, the conditions imposed by the United States are such that it is very difficult to satisfy them at this stage, because I don't even think that there would be many refugees who have relatives in the United States. So I don't foresee any significant reprieve to the people in Gaza at this stage. There are too many legal ifs and buts, and discussions may take further shape here on.
Okay.